everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session on GenAI and how you can protect your organizations against the risks posed by it. So I'm Raju Nagar. I lead product marketing here at Versa Networks for our SSE portfolio. And joining me is Punayan Perumal, who leads our security architects and SE teams for North America. We've provided our email addresses on this screen. You can see here in case we are not able to get to your questions. Please do feel free to email us, and we're very happy to have a follow-on discussion with you. So we hope you find this session very useful. So GenAI, or large language models, is still a very nascent area, and we're really only scratching the surface of what it can do. It has tremendous potential to benefit us. But even as we harness this potential, I think we have to protect our data against both misuse by GenAI and also the as yet unknown threats. So GenAI, you can see here in this diagram, this is the neural network of GenAI. It's built on a vast amount of training data, which is called the hidden data set. And this data set is actually used by the GenAI tool to learn. And it is continually expanding as all the data that we users input into the tool is added to the data set and used to inform the output. So when you're interacting with the GenAI tool and you're uploading data into it, the data doesn't go away. It actually becomes a part of the training data. And this is important because this is how some of the risks are manifesting themselves. So there are many opportunities, of course, associated with GenAI. Let's quickly look at them, but there are also many risks. The opportunity, of course, is that GenAI tools will fuel user productivity and innovation, and they're going to make digital transformation go even faster. In fact, many businesses have already embedded GenAI tools in their SaaS apps and their websites to improve how users interact with their online products and services and improve operational efficiencies. But there are many risks associated with it as well. Recent surveys show that more and more people in companies, in fact, even SOC analysts, are using GenAI without the knowledge and consent of their employer, even though they know that if their employer knew about it, they would probably disapprove. And we're only going to see this increase, just as we did with the early onset of BYOD. We're also seeing that there are many lesser-known GenAI tools that are showing up on the internet. And these are risky companies. They're not averse to misusing information that they gather. And this can have serious consequences for your security, but also your reputational damage. And of course, as we would expect, this is a new emerging category. It's being exploited by cyber criminals to both steal information and also to perpetrate cybercrime and improve their hacking methods. So I want to quickly touch on the specific security challenges that you should be aware of. Researchers are now finding that there are new ways that you can actually break these security guardrails in GenAI. And you can force a tool like ChatGPT, for instance, to output data that is stored in its hidden data set or training data. So there are also bugs that are in these open source libraries that these GenAI tools use, which is a part of the training data. And these bugs can easily make their way into the tool's output and onto a user's device. So GenAI by itself is not malicious. These sites are not malicious, but they can be a conduit for malware. And an example would be, for instance, a non-trustworthy site that's using a custom LLM to incite users, or a GenAI application that's actually serving as a botnet callback. Another big concern we are finding is that employees may be, unknowingly uploading sensitive data or intellectual property and putting you at serious risk for data and privacy leaks. And then there are copyright and legal issues to be aware of. As I just mentioned, all input into the GenAI tool becomes part of the training data. And with the right inquiry, it will easily be able to find its way into the outputs for someone else. And you can be almost certain that cyber criminals and hackers are busy figuring out how to extract sensitive information by using very carefully crafted inquiries. So then the challenge becomes, how does one control data access usage and collaboration with these Gen AI tools without suffocating the productivity and innovation. And there are two specific issues here that we need to be aware of. One is that Gen AI applications are actually distributed all over the place now. They are offered as SaaS in public clouds or internet sites, definitely those two areas. And we know now that when employees input data into these tools, it's actually leaving the enterprise. And so it's at risk for exposure, both for threats and also for leaks. Now, the access control policies today are very loosely enforced around Gen AI, and they're really not consistent. And this is primarily because you have legacy and point products in place for security that don't necessarily talk to each other. So you end up with policy gaps and inconsistencies. The second issue has to do with what is visible to IT. Now, users bring their own devices and access Gen AI from these unsanctioned devices outside of IT governance. And by doing so, what they're doing is they're making the devices vulnerable to threats such as botnet callbacks. And these can spread to the network in no time at all. So, the reality is with all this data and Gen AI applications distributed and users also distributed, it's really difficult to know where the threat may be coming from and what form it will take. So the first step is ensuring consistent, comprehensive web and cloud access control with full visibility into the users, devices, and applications. And Secure Services Edge, or SSE, is the next generation edge security solution that most enterprises are moving towards. So before I cover some of the use cases for SSE and how SSE can help you protect against Gen AI, I want to briefly touch upon the Versa SSE architecture. So SSE is the security part of Versa's unified SASE architecture. SASE is the broader offering with SD-WAN and SSE in it. And the SSE portion includes the key components for secure user access to the web, to cloud services like SaaS, and also to private applications, regardless of the location of the user or the device they are using or where that application is hosted. So many SSE vendors today provide a portfolio of point products instead of a single stack. So even though they are covering all access vectors, there are really gaps in visibility and consistent policy enforcement because each product typically has its own console for visibility. It's got its own data lake and policy repository. So you end up with a bunch of these. And for organizations, the risk in using SSE that consists of different point products is not only are there security gaps, of course, and inconsistencies, but you may not even be aware of these inconsistencies because you don't have that end-to-end visibility from a single console. So Versa SSE is a single natively integrated SSE stack that delivers this identity-based zero trust access control for cloud, SaaS, internet, and private applications. And it also, of course, includes enterprise-wide data loss prevention and advanced threat protection. And I think it's important to note here that Versa is enforcing zero trust security and access control, which is based on rigorous device posture and user identity and role. And of course, authorization is based on least privilege policies. So, and all these security functions in the SSE stack share the same console to provide that end-to-end visibility with a single policy repository and a single data lake. So from a Gen AI protection perspective, what this means is that with the Versa SSE, you can apply a single consistent identity-based policy across all your Gen AI applications, whether they live in a SaaS, public cloud, or internet. And you will have a single console for full visibility and control over applications and data, not only Gen AI, of course, but all your applications and data. And in addition, you will get data loss prevention with automated remediation action for violations, and you'll get advanced threat protection. So this was just a quick overview of our SSE. I want to now cover a few use cases before I hand off to Panayan, who is going to be demoing these. So the first use case, which is a very common one, is that, of course, you want to control usage of Gen AI applications. You want to put granular policies in place by user or user group And an example here would be you allow the marketing group, for instance, to access Gen AI tools for content creation apps. An example here would be ChatGPT, or you want to give engineering access only to API-based Gen AI access. So the SSE function that would actually be used to achieve this goal is CASB, which is the Cloud Access Security Broker. So Versa's CASB supports over 300 SaaS applications and CASB profiles belonging to different categories. It will do an inline discovery of all applications being used, including, of course, all the risky applications such as your Gen AI applications, who is using them, and it will assign a risk score actually to that application or application category, depending upon whether the application is sanctioned or unsanctioned. And from there, it will enforce access policies that are based on the user or user group profiles that you define, and will take into account, of course, additional contextual parameters at the time of access, such as, for instance, the location, the application risk, the content, and other parameters. So here, for this use case, you can leverage the application categories already available, or you can create your own custom SaaS application, Gen AI SaaS application, or you can group a number of Gen AI applications in a Gen AI category, and you can be as granular as you want in defining policies for that. So the benefit for organizations here is with CASB, you get full granular control over usage of any SaaS application or application category. You can define security and access policies that are aligned with your organization and your compliance requirements. In addition, you would get a complete audit trail of all activities and reporting. So CASB is a very, very important element, SSE element, for controlling usage of your Gen AI apps. I want to go into visibility. This is a really important use case. Most organizations want visibility into their users and how those users are accessing applications and all the activities that are going on. And they want the ability to, of course, drill down for detail. So, what you're seeing here is a sample view of our unified dashboard, Concerto, where you can see all user activity and application traffic, and you can drill down to get more details. And conduct some richer analytics. Versa Concerto is a centralized cloud-based analytics and visibility portal for SASE and SSE deployments. And this really simplifies the customer experience because it allows you to configure once, apply across the entire network, and with a single data lake and end-to-end visibility, you can really conduct unified analytics across all your SSE security functions, be it CASB, be it Secure Web Gateway, be it DLP, or Advanced Threat Protection, and you can see that at the top actually in the dashboard. So this is a great visibility tool to get a very comprehensive visibility into all your applications. So this is a very important use case for Gen AI. Then, of course, DLP, which is critical. This is, so when users are using a Gen AI tool like ChatGPT, and that's just one example, users are really looking to make their lives more productive, and they really don't know what impact this can have. They don't know that anything that they type into that window, that tool, is actually going to become a part of that training data, and they don't know that it might actually end up somewhere else and used by the Gen AI tool as output for someone else. So there's huge ramifications here, and you really want to control that. You want to avoid that type of data leakage that can occur when an employee is maybe unknowingly uploading data into a chat GPT or some other tool, or interacting with it in some other way. But even aside from Gen AI, I want to mention many enterprise organizations use hundreds of unmanaged applications not known to IT, shadow IT. So this puts the enterprise at risks of data loss, leaks, unauthorized usage, and non-compliance. So data leakage prevention, DLP, is really a critical capability you want to have for all your applications and data, even outside of Gen AI. So Versa has a contextual DLP that matches based on many attributes. Some of them I just mentioned: the user, the group that they belong to, the application, the file type, geolocation, device posture, etc. And it does the DLP scanning natively inline for all your web and internet applications, for SaaS, your private and collaboration applications, for both your data in motion, which is moving over the network, and data at rest. The Versa DLP supports over 25 discrete content types with multiple scanning methods for the different types of content. It will detect if any sensitive data is being shared, and it will block that access. And it has you can define one of several remediation actions to occur, and it will do this without blocking access to the application. So it will not stop the user, but it will just stop that data from being leaked. And some of the remediation actions it can take are, redaction, quarantine, captive portal notify, tokenization, just purely blocking access also, and alerting, etc. So we'll see some of this in Panayan's demo, which he's going to show us how DLP works. And so the benefit for organizations here is, when you have DLP enabled across your entire network for your SaaS and your internet applications, you can really safely enable access to even the riskier applications such as GenAI without worrying about sensitive data getting lost or exfiltrated. And of course, you limit your corporate liability risk that comes with sensitive data leakage and privacy violations. So finally, this is our last use case before we get to the demo. And this is the ability to restrict access to GenAI internet sites. Now, I mentioned earlier that many GenAI applications are springing up on the internet. And while GenAI applications themselves really are not malicious, as I mentioned, but there are many non-trustworthy, questionable sites that have actually started using custom LLMs because they want to lure users, or they're using these GenAI applications as botnet callbacks. So it's really important to restrict access to all these internet questionable sites. You really want to do that. And you also want to have policies in place for visiting these GenAI sites, because you don't always want to block all sites. But at the same time, you want to enable a safe browsing experience for your employees. So the SSE function that would enable this use case to take place is SWIG, or the Secure Web Gateway. And Panayan is going to show us a demo of how this works. So the Versa SWIG includes a next-gen cloud firewall with SSL description, and it inspects all outgoing and incoming traffic from the internet for malware. It has a URL filtering, which will block access to unauthorized sites by both URL and also URL category, such as, for instance, we know that Bright Cloud now has a new category called, I think, GenAI category. And advanced threat protection capability is there, which will detect and prevent all malware from being downloaded with sandboxing. Another capability I want to talk about, which is really important for protecting against botnet callbacks, is the remote browser isolation. And what this is also a part of SWIG. And what this does is it really prevents any internet browsing content from being downloaded to the user's device. And instead, it's hosted remotely. But to the user, there's no difference. To them, it's as though they're viewing the content on their own device. It's completely transparent, but it is protecting the user from any potentially malicious content from being downloaded. And of course, as I mentioned, Versa DLP works not only for SaaS applications, but also works for SWIG. So with the analytics dashboard, you will have full visibility into the sites and apps visited and the actions taken. And so there you have it. What I want to do now is hand it off to Panayan for the demo. I hope this was a useful session for you. And we hope we have time for questions. But if we don't, please feel free to email us. And thank you very much. Panayan, on to you.
Thank you, Raju. Thank you all for your time today. Versa SSE is a comprehensive platform. What we are looking at here is Versa's unified portal that provides capability to define and deploy granular security access policies with full visibility from a real-time monitoring dashboard and also analytics platform, which gives you an in-depth view of all the forensic data. The portal by itself provides you an intuitive policy definition flow. For example, I'll walk you through a flow. So here, to define a policy, the first thing is to choose a target to be protected. Either it is a web, SaaS, or a private application. Platform comes with multiple thousands of predefined applications, uh, groups, and categories. And then also in URL categories of millions and billions of URL categories. And also users can bring in their own custom defined profiles and categories. Once the category or application target is chosen, the second thing is to choose the identity user group. So the identity information comes from using the authentication source. It could be like authentication can be based on SAML, LDAP, and other supported authentication mechanisms. So once that is selected, like you can select a particular user group. The third thing is the endpoint information profile for the posture check of endpoint entity based on the operating system like Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, etc. Then the next thing is to choose the geolocation from any country specific source destination. Similarly, like any specific source destination zones. And the final thing is the security enforcement action, simple allow or block or reject policy, or it can be a set of profiles with a layered policy that includes URL, DNS, IP filtering, malware detection, DLP, and then the CASB and DLP profiles. As we are talking about the profiles, profile sets can be separately defined. The URL, DNS, IP, file filtering profiles are defined here. Categories, DLP, CASB for the web applications. So once a profile is defined, these profiles can be associated to any number of rules. So with all these tool sets, today for our topic of mitigating risks and leveraging generative AI for a given enterprise, so I have defined few policies. So there are two users here. One is a Panayan. A user is a generic user who's completely supposed to be blocked from accessing any generative AI toolset or web pages. So that is the policy. This particular policy especially shows that for user Panayan, coming from specific zones, he should be enforced with the URL filtering profile that he's associated with. That URL profile is going to category is going to filter him or not allowing to any generative AI web pages. Let's log into one of the PCs as a user Panayan. So in this PC, user Panayan is connected to a gateway San Jose. He should be able to access any web content without any issues as normal as any other users. But at the same time, when he's trying to access the restrictive profiles such as generative AI category, he's thrown a block page with a captive portal page to inform that this is not an allowed action. So that is from the user experience perspective. Once we go back to the portal, SASE portal, here the admin view, we go into analytics and then threat filtering. With the threat filtering, let's go to URL filtering and then narrow down to the particular gateway. Once we go there, we can clearly see that user Panayan is trying to go to openai.com. His action is being blocked. He's blocked, and the profile that was matched is ChatGPT deny. And it has furthermore information such as source, destination, and all that, country where he's coming from, and what zone to zone, etc. So there is another policy here for the different user, which states that for user jobs, as a function, a job function is allowed to go to all the generative AI web portals for a productivity reason. But at the same time, he needs a policy that should be enforced, that should be in place to prevent from any accidental or intentional data leak. Let's go and verify using the user jobs. So I have another PC where jobs is connected to also a San Jose gateway. The jobs as a user should be able to go to any of the chat GPT, and then also he should be able to go to Bard. These are all the generic Gen AI tools being prevalently used. There may be many other tools and portals. So here, for example, if a user is trying to fetch about a credit card for further information, if he's trying to post this data, this is like kind of exposing a PCI DSS data, so which shouldn't be allowed for the user. So that the action here is that coming from the notification is coming from the Versa's gateway DLP engine, saying that this is not a permitted action. The reason being that this is actually a PCI data, but this can be viewed in the analytics platform. Let's go to DLP analytics, and then DLP. Go to specific gateway. For the user jobs, clearly we can see that the user is like matching a string PCI DSS credit card data. Credit card number is a pattern that has been like matched, and the action performed is reject. And the file transfer direction was upload. Somebody is trying to upload. It is basically a text data, and then the administrator is also given with what is the rule violation, what is the authenticated data, so that he exactly knows what has been what the user has been trying to upload to the web portal. So that is one level of protection. So the sensitive data is not the only just a limited for the security exposure, but also many other generative AI tools and enterprises have shown the concerns or expressed the concerns that the source code is another potential entity which is also being exposed to the external world, which can cause in future the data breach, and then potential data leakage of the intellectual property. Such things also should be protected. As we have seen, once the data is fed into the large language models, this can be exfiltrated or exposed to the world in different ways and forms. Let's verify the same thing. The user experience should be the same. I'm now going to get some source code data with a good intention that I'm going to review it with one of the generative AI. So here I have the C code that I'm trying to go to upload to a bot. So let's see what happens now. The user experience is same. Here the user is getting a notification that the DLP engine has acted. There is a policy violation. I'm not allowed to upload this data to the generative AI portal. Let's go back to the analytics view from the admin's perspective. So clearly here we can see that jobs is trying to upload a data, which is like a C code, which is being rejected. And this comes in the category of source code act. So that gives a full detailed view for administrator. These all logs also can be exposed to any exported to any of the SIM or SOAR platforms of choice. Versa in general is a SASE platform that provides a comprehensive protection and visibility without compromising any end user experience. With that, I will conclude my today's demo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone. We hope you found this session useful. And I think we are running out of time here, but we welcome your questions, and you have our email addresses. So please do feel free to reach out. And thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.